Hello and welcome to Stitches and Starlight. My name is Tazhi, but you can call me Tashi because that's what all my friends do, and we're friends now. I'm coming to you from my home in Brooklyn that I share with my husband Joshua and the two hell kittens, actual cats, not humans, Minerva and Astoria. And this is my corner of the internet where we talk about all the things that I am knitting and sewing and spinning and potentially weaving. It is just fiber joy and wool chaos all the time. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for clicking on the thumbnail. There are a million voices vying for your attention on the internet, and you saw whatever this is and decided to give it a go, and that makes you a rad human. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back to the channel. You already know what time it is. Thanks so much for being here. We're going to do today something that maybe I might continue doing if it works. We're going to call this From the Workshop because when I was talking about in my ins and outs, which if you haven't seen somewhere, thumbnail, card, situation, whatever the words are. When I was talking about ins and outs, I talked about not filming and not making content for the sake of making content. And I was just like, what is a way that I can share when I'm inspired that doesn't require a full podcast? And I was just like, what if I just talk about what I'm working on? Which is, in theory, what a podcast is, sure. But the podcast has the finished objects, works in progress, acquisitions. It has that like flow. And I don't want to do that right now. We're just going to talk about the thing that's bringing me joy. So we're going to call this From the Workshop, episode 1. And we're just going to talk about a thing that I've been doing, which has been sampling. Okay, before we proceed, links to all the places that you can find me if you're new here are in the description box. The link to my Instagram in the description box. If you want to be friends on Ravelry, in the description box. If you want to subscribe to my Substack, which is a thing I do where I write a lot of words and then people read them and they tell me they like them and they tell me how those words make them feel. Everything linked in the description box. Link to my Ko-Fi if you want to support my channel. Everything's down there. The housekeeping I'm trying to do at the top because I don't know that people always make it to the ends of the videos, which is where I do the housekeeping. So we're going to try to do housekeeping up top so that I can get it out the way and not have to worry about it. Back to the thing that I was talking about, which is From the Workshop. So we're going to talk about a thing that I've been doing, which has been sampling. So if you follow me on Instagram, you might know this, but I went a little bit crazy. I did potentially like lose my ever-loving mind for 5 seconds, and I scoured 20 pounds of wool in 6 days. I don't know what I was thinking. My back also doesn't know what I was thinking. I mean, I'm a little sore. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little sore and I'm a little tender, but I'm okay. But I did scour 20 pounds of wool in 6 days. I had a moment of just like, got to do this now. And then I could not resist it. Yes, it was a bit manic. It was a bit over the top. I didn't do it all in one sitting. I did 8 pounds one day. How did I do it? I did 8 pounds one day. I did 4 pounds. So I did 8 pounds last Friday. And then I did 4 pounds the following Saturday. And then I did another 8 pounds. Is that math? That is math. And then I did another 8 pounds the following Tuesday. So I did scour 20 pounds of wool. And I'm saying over the last 6 days, it's probably in like 5 days I scoured 20 pounds of wool. It was a ridiculous number of time. And I've been really like enjoying like touching all the stuff that I've acquired. Because some of these fleeces I've had for over a year. I only bought 6 fleeces in 2023. I bought a ridiculous number of fleeces in 2022. And I was much better in 2023. But some of this stuff has just been sitting in my stash waiting to get scoured. This now brings, I will say, we will applaud me for this. This brings the number of unscoured fleeces in the corner of my living room, taking up space, down to single digits for the first time in 2 years. For the first time in 2 years, we are down to single digits of the number of unscoured fleeces in the corner. That doesn't mean, and this is more for me than it is for you, that doesn't mean that it's okay to go buy, willy-nilly. I'm not doing that. I'm trying to move this out. Also, I'm really trying to get wool back in the shop. What I've realized is that I do better. I enjoy spinning pure breeds, and I find making pure breed blends more interesting than making like, a little bit of alpaca, a little bit of silk, a little bit of that. So when the shop gets restocked, it is just going to be pure sheep bats. And if that's not your vibe, I hope you find someone that is. But if that is your vibe and you want to try some of the fun wool that I have that I've been loving, that'll be out there. So what I'm going to share with you right now is sampling. I did film making a bat. I don't know if the footage is useful. I'm going to include it. Hopefully you'll learn something. But I don't know if the footage is useful. So cue the footage of me making a bat, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about sampling. All right, I thought I would try. We're going to try. I don't know if this is going to work, but I thought I would try to show you a little bit of how I make a bat. I've had a few people ask me how I do it. So we're going to see how this goes. I do have my camera set up. So this is my normal filming camera, but I do have a top-down view going as well on my phone. And I'm going to try to intersperse some footage. But right now I have, I didn't weigh this. I just pulled out a big handful of Snuggles, and that's just for the purpose of making this bat. So Snuggles is my Rambouillet, Corey, Cotswold, CVM cross from Nystock. And what I'm doing here is picking the fleece open. So when you're carding from raw, well, scoured, please don't put a dirty fleece on your carder. I know some people spin in the grease. If you're going to spin in the grease, you need to use like hand cards or use like combs. Do not put greasy fleece on your carder. You will wreck your carder and your carder will never forgive you. Don't do it. So what's really important when carding is you want to make sure, well, two things. You want to make sure that you're not carding too quickly, because if you card too quickly, your fleece can ricochet. Well, your fiber, not even fleece, your fiber can ricochet, curl back on itself, and that's what forms neps. And the other thing you want to do is you want to try to make sure your fleece is as open as possible. So what I'm doing right now, as I load things onto the carder, this is the benefit of having an electric carder, because it can just be spinning while I do this. I'm picking out little handfuls of the locks, and I'm just going through it. I'm opening the tips, opening the butts. This is typically what's referred to as a cloud when it's picked open like this. I'm also removing any second cuts if I see any. Snuggles was a coated fleece, so there's not any VM here. If there was any VM, I would be picking the VM, and then I am just feeding it onto the drum into the liquor in, and then letting it feed onto the drum. I do have my packer brush down. It doesn't always do what it's supposed to, but it's just kind of like packing the bat, I guess, for lack of a better term. I mean, I prefer to pack with a paddle brush, which you'll see me do in a little bit. But right now I'm just picking this fleece open. Now, Snuggles is not a fine wool, so I'm not like I'm not spending a ton of time picking. I'm just picking this open into a cloud. What some people say you should do. Now, here's the thing. There's as many ways to make bats as there are people who make bats. I personally don't make bats for texture. So I am doing my best to remove as much texture as I can from my bat. Some people make bats for texture. So again, there's as many ways to make bats as there are people who are making said bats. I'm picking it open like this to make sure that there's as little texture as possible. So I'm going in and opening up all those tips, because that's going to be what would cause texture in my bat. Because it's kind of hard. For perspective, my carder is 120 TPI. There are finer carder cloths out there. I think there's like 190. My friend Melody, Pacific Coaster Fibers, has 320, which is extravagant. And I'm not at all envious. Just saying that out loud. I have 120, which will do most things, but sometimes these little tips, if they get stuck, the carder won't open it. So I'm doing the best I can to facilitate as easy a carding process as possible. And I think what I'll do for this is like periodically pop in the top-down view so you can see what I'm doing. If I was working with a fine wool, I would pick this open in advance, because I need to pick this so much more thoroughly for a fine wool than I do for a medium. So I would pick this in advance. I'll show you, I have a basket full of picked CVM ready to card. Or like my merino fleece, I would be picking that in advance. But something like this, I'm going to pick as I go, because I don't need to be, again, super thorough about this. And we're going to keep going. So I don't know if I have much else to say at this point. I think I'm just going to stop talking and continue working. Normally, I would have music on, and I would be dancing while I do this. But again, my phone is filming for you guys, so there is no music happening. I guess I will entertain myself. Or I could get my iPad and put something else on, but I'm just gonna sit here with my thoughts and work on this bat, work on this first pass. I'm going to do 3 passes. So we're just gonna keep working on this first pass. And then I guess I'll leave some footage in as I work with some music maybe. That sounds good. And I'll come back when we're on. Okay, here we go. This is the type of stuff that I remove. This little bit here. If it's not opening nicely, I just pull it out. But for the most part, these nice stock fleeces are shorn really well. I wish there was a second cut so I could show you what a second cut was, but I also, don't wish that there was a second cut because this is a really nice fleece. Yeah, I don't see any. This is my second bat making for Snuggles. I made one to sample and I didn't see any second cuts that time. And I don't see any this time. So just gonna keep working. Once I get through about half of the fiber I have in my basket for a particular bat, I like to hit the bat with my burnishing brush. This is the Fancy Kitty burnishing brush that came with my carder. I also have a Clemis and Clemis burnishing or packing brush. And the difference between this and the brush is these have sharp metal tines. And the tines point in the opposite direction of the carding cloth. So it actually goes into the carding cloth and really helps to pack your bat down. The other thing I find that it does is it kind of helps to like align some of the fibers and get it to lay a little bit better. So what I do is I go through one full rotation. So I wait till I hit the opening and then I pass on. I wait till I hit the opening and then I move on. And that way I'm sure that I've carded and packed down the whole drum. Now you'll notice that I'm running my carder pretty slowly. Again, this is just to reduce the risk of texture and neps. The faster you go, the faster there is a chance of your carder ricocheting on you and introducing all that texture that, again, if you want texture, do you, boo, this is your adventure. But I'm looking for as smooth a prep as possible because I am not spinning art yarns. I'm not spinning textured yarns. Here's a little bit of VM. I'm going to pick that out. I'm not spinning art yarns or texture yarns. I'm spinning yarns for garments, typically, or like a shawl or whatever. So I'm not really interested in texture in my finished yarn. Now, eventually neps do happen. If you're home processing, if you're trying to avoid neps, you just got to comb, I guess. But sometimes neps do happen. And I just pick that out while I'm spinning. I pick out VM while I'm spinning. I mean, these are alive animals. If you don't want VM and you don't want neps and you don't want any of that other stuff, this might not be the adventure for you. But I don't mind any of that. In fact, I think it just lets me be a little bit more grounded and closer to the animal that, raised the wool. So I have a little bit left in my basket. I'm going to continue picking and loading on my carder. My drum is not at all full. I can pack this if I really wanted to. I could pack this pretty heavily. I've put 7 ounces on the carder. The carder was very upset with me after that. But I can really, I can pack this pretty full. If I think this is probably like maybe 70 grams in this bucket. But again, I did not weigh it. I just grabbed an amount that felt reasonable for a demonstration. It had to be enough that I could get like a reasonable size bat off this carder. But I didn't want it to be so much that it would take forever to make. When I made 100-gram bat for Snuggles the first time, it took me about 40 minutes. So this is slow craft. And that's with the electric carder. Now with manual, it would take me even longer. So this is slow craft. But again, if you're doing this kind of work, you kind of have to love that it's slow. And if you don't like that it's slow, this might not be the kind of work for you. But this is definitely slow craft and slow making. And it's a really good time for me to, again, listen to an audiobook or listen to music or just kind of sit and think. This is practically meditation. I find this kind of work very meditative. So it's a good place to just kind of sit and be with your thoughts. If you need a minute, just kind of like take some space for yourself. Yeah, so just about done though. And then we're going to doff this and we're going to do pass 2 and then we'll do pass 3. All right, so we're just at the tail end of loading all the fiber on. There's no more fiber coming in. What I do here is I ramp it up full speed, which I'm not worried about anymore because again, there is nothing coming into the carder. So I'm not really worried about neps and noils. I just ramp it up full speed. And then I really go ahead and pack that bat down, hitting it with the burnishing brush, making sure I'm getting the bat even before we pull it off. And that is that. We're going to turn the speed down, lift up our packing brush, and then go ahead and start removing this bat. Now I have my little doffing hook that came with my Fancy Kitty carder. My camera, my phone, is actually right where I need to stand to remove this bat. So this is going to be interesting. I am going to open it from this direction. So I just go under, and it's easier to go a little bit at a time, especially if you have like a really thick bat or if you have something that has like a lot of texture, if you have a fine wool that has a lot of crimp. So I go slowly, and I just go and work my way across from, left to right. I'm left-handed, so that just makes sense to me. But again, do whatever feels good. So we really open that bat up. I don't think I can doff it from this side, so I'm not going to try. I'm going to go to the other side and then attempt to remove this. All right, here is pass 1. So, we're mostly open. We got a little bit of movement. We're doing okay. There's still some texture in here, obviously. But we're pretty open off of pass 1. So we're just going to repeat that. So what I do for pass 2 and 3 is I first split the bat lengthwise a few times. Just kind of open it up, split it lengthwise. Snuggles, again, is not like high volume, high density. For our fine wool, I would split this probably like 6 or 7 times. Now I'm just splitting it 4 times. I'm just going to pre-draft it. So I am really opening this up, letting some air in. And then also the reason I pre-drafted is so I could really examine the length of fiber before I load it onto the carder. So now I have this much, longer and airier strip of fiber. I'm going to turn the carder back on, put that packing brush on, and I'm going to open it the width of the carder. And this is where I really start to examine it as it loads on. And I'm picking out any bits that I don't like. Now again, because Snuggles is a medium wool, hopefully, I don't think I had any real neps last time, but now that I'm doing this where people can watch me, things might be questionable. But because Snuggles is a medium wool, hopefully there's not any real neppage in here. I do sometimes pull out locks. I'm hoping that you can see this on the top camera, but I don't even know if the top camera is in frame anymore. I do pull out locks I didn't open. There's a chance that they could open on the second pass, but also they could just continue to leave texture in my bat. So I pull it out. really hoping the top camera is in frame because it's a little bit too tall for me to take a peek at it. So hopefully the top camera is in frame. But what I really try to do on the second and third pass is to make sure that one, the fiber is going on in really thin layers, but two, make sure that it's going on the width of the carder so that like it's not super thick in one area and then like super thin in other places, because that just helps it to doff cleaner if it has uniform thickness. So we've gotten through about half of the batt. So I'm going to do the same thing again, grab my packing brush and hit it with my packing brush as it's spinning, just making sure that we're burnishing in those layers. And I'm taking a quick peek at it, making sure it looks the way I want it to. And we're going to continue. I grabbed my second half, same thing, pre-drafting it out, really adding some air back into here so that I can see what, what the fibers are doing, what it looks like, how it's going, and then go ahead and feed that bad boy onto the carder. I will say with passes 2 and 3, you can go a little bit faster on the speed of the drum than you did with pass 1, but I'm still not running this at like full speed. I think on my speed dial, this is probably like half speed compared to how fast the carder can go. Because again, you can make neps and noils at any step of the process. I'm comfortable going a little bit faster on these passes because I'm not working from, crimpier locks, but you still don't want to, like, we're not flooring it here. We're taking our time. And also the faster we go, the faster fiber, this is from another spin that I just did not clean my carder properly. The faster we go, the less time I have to really examine what's being loaded onto the drum, and the less time I have to pick out the things I don't want in my final batt. So again, slow craft, guys. That's what this is. This is slow craft. This is slow making. Sometimes I look at my drum and there's a spot right here where the fiber is not being packed onto the drum correctly and it's just kind of spinning in on itself. So that's when I'll stop and hit it with the packing brush, even though, I was like, oh, it's more than half or whatever have you. I'm also looking at my work as I'm doing it. And if there's a place where it's not being packed onto the drum and it's just kind of spinning, that will also form neps because it can roll back on itself. So I will stop and hit that, hit it with the burnishing brush, make sure it's back in the carding cloth, back in the tines before I progress. So it's all about examining your work, looking at what you're doing, looking at what the fiber is telling you, and then taking your time. You really, really, really want to take your time with this sort of thing. So I'm on my last section of pass 2, and then we're gonna, do the same thing, remove it. On pass 3, I don't really spend as much time pre-drafting and picking out imperfections. I still look at my work, but I'm hoping that by the time we do the first 2 passes, it's especially with the fleece-like snuggles that is opening up so quickly and so evenly. I tend to not spend as much time on pass 3. It's just a matter of, I think so here's my methodology. Pass 1 is to open the locks. Pass 2 is to continue opening the locks and start aligning the fibers. And pass 3 is to perfect it. So by the time I get to pass 3, here's a little bit of VM that I'm seeing that I'm ripping up. By the time I get to pass 3, it's just a matter of making sure that the batt looks exactly the way I want it to. Hopefully all the work of opening the fibers have been done on passes 1 and 2. And then it's just a matter of evening things, aligning things, compressing things. That's at least my methodology. Everybody, again, there are as many ways to process wool as there are people who do it. So I'm always wary of, I think I said this in a previous video, spinning dogma is not my vibe. Do what feels good for you. Do what works for your own making. Do what makes the yarn that makes you happy and that makes your projects happy. I just realized that half of the carder is not in frame on the top camera, so I'm still going to use that footage, but I'm apologizing in advance, and I will fix it for pass 3. So that's pass 2 done. We're going to doff this batt, and we're going to continue. I can already tell, like, I mean, hopefully there would be a difference, but there is a huge difference between passes 1 and 2 of Snuggles, and I will show you after this back comes off. It's just, it's delight. I mean, I find carding so, well, I don't like combing, and my wrists don't like combing, but there's something about carding that I just really, really enjoy. I enjoy seeing the, like, transformation. I don't know. I just find it really rewarding. All right. So here we are in pass 2. And you can see a lot more consistent, a lot more even, much less texture than on pass 1. Just, she's beautiful. She's beautiful. So we're going to do one more pass because we are decadent and we are extravagant. And we want this to be as close to perfection as we can. So same thing. I'm going to rip this up and I'm going to feed this right back onto the carder, keeping an eye out for any frisky bits. Just look at her. Look at her. Any frisky bits that may have escaped the first 2 times. I mean, that was a wild bit of VM. I don't know where that came from. But any frisky bits that may have escaped the first 2 times. So I'm, again, just opening it the width of the carder, going nice and slow, and just letting it take its time to feed on. I'm not really like messing with it. Just kind of opening it up, taking a peek. I will say, sometimes you see people like hold on to their fiber as it's feeding it in to create a bit of tension. That is not something I really do. I tend to just let it feed onto it naturally. And if it's feeding on too fast that I feel the need to hold it down, then I just slow down. Holding it down can ricochet it onto the liquor-in and just let your liquor-in steal more of your fiber than it needs to. This liquor-in already steals more fiber than my brother one does. So I'm not trying to do anything else that makes it easier for it to kidnap. Here we go. Let's see if the top camera sees that. There's a bit that did not get opened up. Where's the camera? There's a bit that did not get opened up on the first 2 passes. So that gets removed on pass 3. So I am still looking, still looking for, here's a little bit of VM that has to go also. Just looking for things that, may have escaped my notice or may have escaped my 120 times per inch on the first 2 passes. And then slowly letting this feed on. I'm keeping an eye on my drum, making sure my drum looks nice and even. If I see a spot where it's not getting packed in, I hit it with my packing brush. Oh, that went on a little bit too quick and a little bit too thick. So, that is how you get neps and noils. There, ladies and gentlemen, is a perfect example of how you can get ahead of yourself. Even on pass 3. Now, if there was a place for that to happen, pass 3 is probably the best place for it to happen because the fiber was already pretty open. And again, Snuggles is a very generous and not super frisky fleece that'll get me in a lot of trouble. But that, I don't know if you could, hopefully the top camera caught that. Where it just starts to get ahead of you, that's less ideal. So I'm going to go back to thinner strips. Sometimes I get a little impatient on pass 3, I'm not going to lie. And I probably should have done a thinner strip than that last one. And it backfired. So we're going to go back to slowing down and taking our time. I mean, like everybody else, I am cursed with impatience. And sometimes I get a little impatient. All right, so we're at the tail end of pass 3. I'm just going to continue hitting it with my burnishing brush. Really pack those locks in on the drum. Make sure everything's nice and even and consistent. And then we're going to doff. And then I'll show you what she looks like after 3 passes and she's all open. All right, I'm going to try to see if I move the carder maybe you can see me actually remove this final pass. We'll see. I think I'm in frame. All right. So we don't need the phone anymore. I'm going to turn the phone off, get it out the way. I'm also going to like hit myself in the head with it and, you know, potentially give myself a concussion. All right, here we are. So here we are on the last pass. This is a considerably larger drum than my other carder. So I do have to remove bats off of this pretty slowly. I have ordered porcupine quills for my carder so that I can, you know, to make it easier to get in between if sometimes fiber stays behind. So I go and I pull it a little bit at a time, and I'm using just the tips of my fingers to pull it a little bit at a time, and then I roll the drum. And then I pull it a little bit at a time, and then I roll the drum. On my smaller carder, I can just grab it by the handful at the top and yank it off. But when I do that with this carder, I actually leave a lot of fiber behind because it's so large. So I just go and I use the tips of my fingers, so I'm disturbing it as little as possible, and I pull it off, and then I rotate it forward. And I just do that until the whole bat is off. So pull it off a little bit at a time, just taking a peek at how much fiber is being left behind. If I see that the bat is leaving a lot more fiber behind than I like, I just go in with my doffer, which is, you know, considerably thicker than I should be doing. I'm getting porcupine quills. I go in and I like lift it up and smooth it back. I don't do that as much with the last pass though, because sometimes the stuff that stays behind in the carder is not as nice, and I don't want that in my pass. All right, and then when I get to the end, I wrap my hands around it and I pull it off gracefully. And here's a bat. So I'm going to come back around. There's a lot of moving parts here, so you can see what's going on. But I'm going to come back around. And here is Snuggles after 3 passes. She's just, there's a frisky bit of something in there. Get out. She's open. She's even. She's lustrous. And then when it comes to rolling it, where to put this carder so you can see. Okay, I open it up. So my carder makes bats that are 18 inches wide and 32 inches long, I think. I think those are the stats. So I roll it in, I wrap it in 3. So I have a nice little log situation. And then I roll it on itself. Again, this is just so it stores nicer, because it's huge and it's airy and it's fluffy. And I wrap it on itself. And here's Snuggles. Here's a bat. So I hope you, I don't know if this was informative. If it was, I hope you learned something. If not, I hope it was like, you know, visual ASMR. And we'll go back to whatever nattering I'm doing. But here you go. There's Snuggles, all open and carded and beautiful. So again, if you follow me on Instagram, also, I hope you enjoyed the bat. You know, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it looks okay. If you follow me on Instagram, you will have seen all of these skeins. Oh, here's the thumbnail. If you follow me on Instagram, you will have seen all these skeins. You will have seen me post them in rainbow order multiple times. But this is just what I've been doing over the last week. Oh, I have to turn my ISO off of auto. We need to stop for a second. I need to turn my ISO off of auto. That's going to make me crazy. Hold on. Okay, I've turned my ISO off of auto so that now I can hold yarn up next to my face and the lighting stays the same. I don't know how my ISO ended up on auto. I never film on auto, but you know, every now and then things happen. So anyways, if you follow me on Instagram, you will have seen all of this yarn. And if you don't, I'm a delight. So, you know, if you like social media, if you don't, you know, you get the stuff eventually. So we're going to talk about all of the yarn that I've been sampling. I'm going to show them to you. I'm going to share some stats. I'm going to tell you how they made me feel. We're going to do, I just dropped a bunch of it. We're going to do all the things. And that'll be today's video. That'll be today's workshop update. I don't know where to start. We're going to start with the lightest to go to the darkest. So this is Millie. Oh, and you know what I did? You know what I did? So you guys love me. I remembered to pull out locks from all these fleeces. So I'm going to show you what they look like before they got carded and spun. So let's start with Millie. So this is Millie. We're going to, oh my goodness, I forgot how delightful and delicious you are. That siren outside is going to make me nuts. I can't do anything about it. There's always sirens. Here's Millie. So Millie is a mutt. Look at how white she is. Oh my goodness. I'm going to try to remember to insert pictures of what they look like unscoured, because I think I have pictures of most of these unscoured. Some of them, most of them. Millie is I can't stop touching her. She's a CVM Merino Romney Corey Cross that I got from Lynn at Roy Bob's farm. Melody has the other half. Actually, Melody has the other half of 2 of these fleeces here. And Meg at Brioche and Bruce has the other half of 1 of these. I like to share fleece with my friends, so what can I say? I gotta stop petting this. She's so soft. She's so soft. So and all of these are woolen spun. Before I get into this, all of these are woolen spun and then chain plied into a 3-ply yarn, because when I spin for sweaters, I like to spin 3-ply yarns. I like I like a round squishy yarn for my sweaters. I'm looking at my phone for the notes. So Millie, here's some stats on Millie. All of these except Charles have not been finished. I'm going to finish them as soon as I finish filming, but I didn't want to finish them last night and then they weren't dry for me to film. So I'm going to finish them as I film after I'm done filming. Here's Millie. She's getting a little blown out. White wool is really hard to share, but she's getting a little blown out. But there's Millie, and Millie this sample is 70 grams, 164 yards. My yards per pound, again, all pre-washing, so this is going to change. Yards per pound was 1063, and this is a DK weight yarn with a twist angle of 35 degrees, which is my default yarn for really, we need to talk about the elasticity here. Do you see that bounce? Look at that bounce. My default yarn for a fiber that has crimp and elasticity and can take it is 35 to 40 degrees of a twist angle, because they can take it. They will eat that twist. We're going to unskein them. We're going to have to, just so you can see, because we need to talk about this elasticity. Like, do you see that? There is so much bounce, so much life. Now, again, these yarns are not finished, so they have some counter spin. I like my yarns to have counter spin as soon as they come off the bobbin, because when I wash them and I reactivate that singles twist, they end up balanced. If they tend to be balanced and hanging even before they're washed, they might be counterbalanced and have some sort of spin after they hit the water. This is just my own spinning. We talked about spinning dogma. It's not real. Here's Millie. Just look she's so beautiful and round. I love this yarn so much. So that's one of the fleeces that I've been sampling. And that's all this is. This is just a sample show and tell. That's it. There's nothing else. Where am I going to put this yarn? I'm going to put it on the TV. There's nothing else happening here besides a sampling show and tell. So next we have Icelandic. And this is from a sheep named Stella Luna that I got from, I don't remember. I was going to make something up and I don't remember. The Stella Luna is a lamb, purebred Icelandic lamb, and she had 2 colors. She had black and white in her fleece. So here's the locks. Here's the black and here's the white. And I pulled off a bit of the white because there's not a lot of black in her fleece and I really want to try to make a colorwork project. My favorite way to spin Icelandic is to spin, I just whacked myself in the face. My favorite way to spin Icelandic is to spin a single, a low twist single. So think fast hands, slow feet. If you're spinning on a wheel, you want to treadle really slowly, but you want to draft as quickly as possible to make sure you're not over twisting, and drop your ratio. I spun these at 10 to 1, which is like the lowest ratio I will spin at. I mean, geez, wool everywhere, just everywhere. I spun these at 10 to 1. And again, a little bit of counter spin in this because this hasn't been washed. I'm going to fold these singles. And when you fold a yarn, you go from hot to cold to hot to cold, and that shocks the fibers and helps them felt a bit, just to make my singles a little bit more robust. But Stella Loon did not snap once as I was scanning her. So this is already a pretty robust, I figured out why my yarns are so washed out. The light is right behind the camera. So there you go. I'm going to have to mess around with my setup if I ever want to show you yarn again. But here's Stella Luna. She's just singles. And again, here's the fun thing about Icelandic. No elasticity at all. So much drape, just so much drape. If your experience with Icelandic has only been with Lopi yarns, like Let Lopi and Alafast Lopi, and that has turned you off from Icelandic, spin it yourself. If you're a spinner, spin it yourself. There's nothing like Icelandic that has been minimally processed and spun yourself. Especially if you get like a lamb. Now the tongue and the thell are mixed here. Like I did not separate the coats. This is just, there's no scratch and no prickle. at all. I would wear this next to skin. I could wear this on my neck. If you can get your hands on Icelandic that's been minimally processed and spin it yourself, it's night and day. Now, here's a fun thing about the characteristics of yarn. I spun these on the, I skeined these on the same Niddy Noddy. Look at the difference in length of these skeins. And that is just because Millie has crimp in her and shrunk the second she got off the Niddy Noddy, and the Icelandic has none. And that's just, that's just wool being fascinating. We're gonna move right along. This is Opal. Where is Opal? This is Opal. And Opal I got at Maryland Sheep and Wool. And she was just labeled a merino cross. Nothing else in her genetics. She was a steal because she was uncoated. And this is one of the cleanest uncoated fleeces I've ever seen. But she was a steal because she was uncoated. I think she was like 6 pounds. And I made it be paid $50 for her. And I was just like, that's cool because, uncoated fleeces might be a little bit of work, but I will get good wool out of that. And my sample is ridiculous. So here's what she looks like. These are all scoured locks, by the way. I don't have any pictures. I don't have any more of it raw, but this is just a scoured lock. You can see still has some of that crimp, still has some of that body. I'm wondering if she's crossed with a long wool, because I don't think she's crossed with a fine wool. But, I've been wrong before. But here's Opal all spun up. That's my Opal sample. And I just, again, that squish, that bounce, killing me. So this was a 40-gram sample. I got 82 yards, which gives me 930 yards per pound, pre-finished. Just so much bounce, like so much life in this yarn. I spun this to about worsted weight. I'm interested to see if she'll bloom, but I spun this to about worsted weight. So much elasticity in that yarn, so much elasticity. And it's just really, this is a perfect yarn for cables or for texture. Just really, really round, really juicy. I mean, everything about this is the type of yarn that I love spinning. Carded up brilliantly, was not hard to card. Everything about this is the type of yarn that I reach for. I love it so much. I just realized I had skeined all of those yarns and I did not take my thumbnail picture, and I'm going to have to skein them all back up to take the thumbnail to then wash it. Why am I like this? So next we have Charles, and Charles is the only yarn that I finished because this is the only sample that I spun before this last week. I did all the spinning in a week, by the way, which is ridiculous. Every night I carded a different bat and spun a different fleece. Every day I came home, I was like, which one am I gonna do today? It was like a fun little game. I was just like, I have so many choices. Mind you, I have not sampled everything, by the way. I still have easily a dozen, maybe half a dozen fleeces that I have not sampled. So, we're not done yet. We still have we've so much left to do. This is Charles. Charles is a CVM. I think I've talked about Charles on the channel before. Charles is a CVM Ram from Greene County Wool. A really pretty gray. So here he is in lock form. There's some of the lighter white colors and then some of the darker silver grays. Just look at that. I mean, look at that staple length. That bounce, you gotta love a CVM. CVM is one of those like fine wools that straddle the medium fine wool. Guys, the elasticity in CVM just blows my mind every single time. Literally blows my mind. So here's Charles. I have been picking this fleece before I start carding because I know that the only way I'm going to get this spun is if I pick it in advance because it's taking so much work to pick it open. I'll show you what the basket of pick locks looks like. I'm on basket 2. But here's Charles. And Charles has been finished. So this is what he looks like in finished form. And his numbers in finished form, where's Charles? This is a 27-gram sample, 101 yards, 16 and 81 yards per pound. And I spun this. This is about a heavy sport weight 3-ply. Again, all my skeins have been, this is fascinating to me how much life and elasticity is in this CVM yarn. Oh my God, if you're one of those merino babes and you have not tried CVM yet, get your life. You need to stop everything you're doing and fix that now and get your life because CVM will change it. Just out of sight, absolutely out of sight. So those were the lighter fleeces. Now we have the darker wools yet. Next, this is Snuggles. And Snuggles is from Nystock. And Snuggles is my 3rd gray fleece from Nystock. I mean, I like what I like, sue me. And I like a good gray fleece, and I like a nice dark fleece. So I like what I like. So Snuggles is the fleece that you saw me card during the demonstration portion of this workshop update, whatever we're calling it. So Snuggles is a CVM, Rambo, Cotswold, Corey Cross. Here's what she looks like in lock formation. She's just, gosh, so pretty. Here she is. Just so pretty, super lustrous. I love this. And spun like nobody's business. Okay, so here's the yarn. This is a larger sample because I carded this big Batt and then I liked spinning it so much that I could not stop spinning it. So this is one of the larger samples. But just, do you see the color here? Super lustrous, just beautiful, beautiful yarn, beautiful yarn. Again, still not finished. So a little bit of counter spin, totally expected. And here are Snuggles stats. Snuggles, this is a 95-gram sample. I have 162 yards, 776 yards per pound. Now, this is also a worsted weight yarn, but because Snuggles is a medium to longer wool, she's a little bit more dense, so her grist is going to be lower than, you know, Millie or Opal or obviously the CVM, but definitely like Millie or Opal, which are both crosses, but are more, I think, more fine wool crosses than Snuggles, which is, you know, more of a medium wool. But I would, you know, perfect sweater yarn. I think I'm going to spin this up into a 3-ply, just like this. It's softer. This is a 30-degree twist angle, a much softer twist angle than Millie. I wonder if I could show you that. I wonder if there's a way. I wonder if the camera will cooperate. If I can show you the difference in twist angle. Let's see. If I hold them upside, nope, that white wool is getting washed out. I was trying to show you the difference in twist angle, but the white wool is getting completely washed out. So I cannot show that to you, but maybe I can take pictures and show that later. But Snuggles is definitely a softer twist angle because, again, more of a medium to long wool. I meant to show you the basket of Charles. I have so much like wool squirrel brain right now that I'm like having a hard time focusing. But here is the basket of Charles. This is how big the basket is. This is my head for reference. This is how big the basket is, and this is all Charles picked into fluffy clouds so I can start carding. So here we go. All fluffy clouds of Charles that I've been picking painstakingly by hand while I watch TV. This is only 6 ounces. CVM is just that squish, y'all. It's just that squish. That's 6 ounces of it ready to card. So when I have the second bucket full, I will actually start carding because the carding of Charles is very, very, very slow. Like twice as long to make a Batt of Charles as it does to make a Batt of Snuggles. I don't want texture. I don't want neps. I don't want any of that stuff. So I'm going super slow. We'll do Cosette next. So Cosette is another cross from Roy Bob. Raised by Lynn. Cosette is a Merino BFL Border Leicester cross. And here's her sample. Just, here you go. Here's her sample. Now, she is a dark gunmetal. Yeah, dark gunmetal charcoal color. This is a 43-gram sample, 86 yards, 908 yards per pound. And this is a, you know, heavier DK, not quite worsted, but a heavy DK weight on the 3-ply. Just beautiful. Now, not as much elasticity, I mean, almost none, as the other skeins, which makes sense because 2 of the breeds in her cross are long wools. So you don't expect BFL to have elasticity. You don't expect Border Leicester to have elasticity, but what you do expect it to have, which Cosette has in spades, is, oh, I didn't show you the lock. Where's Cosette? Yes, here's Cosette. And what she does have in spades is luster. So just a super shiny yarn. And again, maybe luster is not everyone's vibe, but I like gray wool, 1, and I like gray shiny wool, 2. And this has both. Just beautiful, easy to spin, easy to card, easy to prep, easy to spin. Just a delightful yarn to play with, one that I've just been having so much fun. I have carded 90% of the half. Melody has the other half of this, by the way. I've carded 90% of the half of the fleece that I have. Just, oh, look at these forbidden noodles. They're just like, you know, they're noodles. They're just noodles. I love it. I've carded 90% of my half. I think I have like 8 ounces to go. And then because it's 908 yards per pound, what I was thinking of keeping was a pound and a half for myself, which is enough for a sweater spin, and then putting the rest in the shop. Because that is uncoated. So, you know, there's a little bit more VM in it, but again, I don't mind VM. A lot of it comes out when you're spinning without you even trying. And then occasionally you have to pick a little bit of, these were sheep. The sheep were alive. The sheep were living their best life. The sheep were eating grass. Sometimes the grass comes home with you. I don't mind that stuff. But, you know, to each their own, choose your own adventure. Trying to make sure my mic does not get lost. To each their own, you know, choose your own adventure. So the last two I have, this is my super rare find. So this is Perendale, and it not only is it Perendale, it's a Perendale lamb. And not only is it Perendale lamb, it's a gray Perendale lamb, which are all, so Perendale is really hard to find. Sorry, I've been a little under the weather, and this cough is just, it's getting me. Perendale is just it's a little bit hard to find. It's hard to find shepherds that are raising it, so I did find a whole Perendale flock. And then I found a Perendale lamb, and I found a gray one at that, because most Perendale is white. So here's the lock. Here's that lock. I don't know the sheep's name. The shepherd did not tell me her name, but she's just, whatever her name is, she's super precious. So here's the sheep, and here is the yarn. Perendale is a Romney Lincoln cross, and it just has, we're gonna stay, I mean, I could stand here and stare at this yarn forever because I love it so much. A Romney Lincoln cross, and is one of my favorites to spin. Just, I don't know what it is about it. I mean, well, I really enjoy Romney, but I don't know what it is about Perendale that makes me so happy, but it really does. It really does. Here's just, oh my gosh, we're going to stop and appreciate this yarn a little bit. This is a huge sample because, again, I did not intend to spin the whole thing. I was having a lot of fun carding. Here's the yarn. I was having a lot of fun carding, and then I ended up carding this like 5 ounce Batt. And then I was like, I'm only going to spin a little bit of it. And then I had so much fun spinning that I have a whole monstrous skein of yarn. So here are my Perendale stats. This skein is 128 grams, 258 yards, 915 yards per pound, which again, kind of expected for a long wool. I think most people, I wish I had my Fleece and Fiber source book next to me, but it's all the way over there. I think Perendale is classified as a long wool, which would make sense because Romney is a long wool and Lincoln is a long wool. So if both of her parents are long wools, I would assume that she's also considered a long wool. So, you know, 915 yards per pound for worsted weight yarn, I think makes sense. I mean, even like worsted weight merino, you're going to get like 1,000 yards per pound anyway. So like 915, I'm super happy with this. I can't wait to see what this does in the washing. I don't expect much bloom. Like I don't, because again, a long wool. But I'm really interested to see what happens. I have 6 pounds of this. 6 pounds. I'm keeping half. Half is for me. The other half is going in the shop. But 6 pounds, that's so much Perendale spinning. There's so much. So much. I'm so excited. And the last fleece that I have to show you that I sampled is a merino. This is Marco. And Marco is raised by Martha Polke at Black Sheep. And this is my first merino fleece. And it's, you know, Marco's taken everything I got. Here's Marco washed. So a very warm gunmetal gray, looks brown in comparison to the cooler gray fleeces, but definitely still considered a gray. And, whoo child, the way Marco made me work for this Batt, and I mean, we're still gonna have to work a little bit more to nail it. I think I need a little bit, I mean, I was picking the CVM and I thought I was picking it okay. So I picked the merino the way I was picking the CVM. And I think I just need to slow down a little bit more because there was still texture in this Batt. And it shows in my spinning. Now, mind you, when I came to spinning this, I was not taking my time. So my spinning's not the most consistent with this. It was more of a way of assessing the texture in my Batt. So again, spinning's not that great, but you know, it's my spinning, so it's okay. But, you know, not my best work. So here's Marco. Now you can see the yarn is a little bit nubbly. and a little bit thick and thin. And again, a little bit nubbly because there's still some texture left in that bat that I could not get out completely. So I do need a little bit more work picking open these locks and then just slowing down when I process it. But I get why people process merino now. I'm never going to be a merino girly. Never. Never. I think there's so much more wool that's more interesting than this. But I do understand why people are merino people now. So Marco stats. This is a 64-gram sample, 146 yards, 1,035 yards per pound. And again, all these stats are pre-washing. Look, I mean, just beautiful, beautiful fiber. I'm not going to say beautiful yarn because it's not my best work, but it's okay yarn. And I'm going to have to just slow down. I think part of the reason why I'm being a little bit hard on myself is compared to all of these other skeins, this is like not my best. And I could do better, but it was my first time working with merino. And so I needed a baseline. Like I needed something to compare all future merino explorations to, so that I know if I'm getting better, improving, learning. That's the word I'm looking for. So that I know that I'm learning and, you know, making actionable and measurable progress. Progress is the word that I'm looking for. But Marco's just beautiful, beautiful fiber. Would make a brilliant sweater. Obviously, next to skin soft, just dreamy, dreamy, pillowy soft. I love, so here we go. Here's all of my sampling that I've done in a week or so. I easily 1,000 yards of yarn that I've completed in a week. That is a wild thing to say out loud, that I've spun 1,000 yards of yarn in a week. Maybe this will be the thumbnail because I don't want to reskin these. Maybe this will be the thumbnail. I gotta figure out how to do this. Like maybe this will be the thumbnail, just my face holding up all these forbidden noodles. I really don't want to have to reskein these, and I want to just throw them right in the wash when I'm done here. So here we go. I did spin over 1,000 yards of yarn in a week, which is a little bit excessive, I'm not going to lie, but I was not feeling my best. Physically, I have not been feeling my best, and spinning makes me happy, and fleece makes me happy. And also I've been on a mission to get to know the behemoth, which is my big carder, and the behemoth and I are much better friends now than we were a few. Also, funny story, I thought I broke it, and I didn't want to tell Joshua that I thought I broke it, so I just haven't been using it. And then finally I was like, Joshua, I think I broke my carder. Can you look at it? And he fixed it in 5 seconds. So, I probably should have just told him like 5 months ago that I thought I broke my carder and I needed him to look at it, because he's, you know, way more tech savvy and like electronic savvy. Like not computer tech, but like machine tech and like electronic tech savvy than I am. So anyways, this week was a mission to learn my carder so that I can reopen my shop, because I can't do the hand cranking and get stuff out. But now that my carder and I are friends, I'll be able to get my shop filled again. And also so much yarn. All of this is immediately going to go into the bath, but now I've shared it with you. So here we go. That was the first from the workshop update. I hope you enjoyed listening to me natter on about wool for the last half hour, 45 minutes, however long. I hope you enjoyed watching me make a bat, and it, like, you know, you learned something, it informed your own making, it made you think about something, it inspired you. I don't know. I'm just sharing because I'm inspired, and when I'm inspired, I want to talk about wool. So that's it. That's it, y'all. I will see you around for whatever comes next. Maybe it'll be a podcast. Maybe it'll be another making journal. There are a few other things that I'm working on that I didn't share here, but it's just like, I only want to talk about one thing. If I try to talk about more than one thing, it would take too long. And you know how that goes. But I've been doing a bit of spindle spinning. So hopefully by the next time I'll have all of my Woodland Pixie 12 days spindle spun, and I can show that to you, and then I can ply those yarns. I have plied 10 of the 12 Advent skeins from Akara Yarns. So maybe by the next time I see you, I'll have a bunch of little mini skeins to show you. We could talk about like mini skeins and what I'm not going to do with them, because I don't ever know what to do with mini skeins. But that's it, y'all. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I love you. I'd blow you a kiss, but I'm full of yarn. I love you. Go make something fun today.